The accountant's voice barely filled the boardroom when it changed everything. "Mr. Mensah-Boateng, I need you to understand. The assets are frozen. All of them. The investors have pulled out. Everything you've built over the past 15 years could be gone within 60 days. Adom sat very still behind his glass desk on the 32nd floor of his Bay Street tower and watched Cynthia's face across the room. And what he saw broke something open inside him that would take a long time to close. She wasn't looking at him. She was looking at the accountant. Her jaw was tight, her eyes calculating, running numbers behind a face she kept very carefully arranged. She didn't reach for his hand, didn't say his name. The first words out of her mouth were, "What does this mean for the wedding?" Not "Are you okay?" Not "What can I do?" Not "I'm here, Adom, I love you, we'll get through this." What does this mean for the wedding? But what Cynthia didn't know, what nobody in that room knew except Adom and the man who had arranged all of it, was that the collapse was a lie. Every number on that report was fiction. His company was fine, his accounts were full, his investments were solid. The only thing that wasn't fine was his heart, and he had arranged this entire performance to find out what was standing next to it. Before I tell you what came next, I want to ask you something. If you've ever loved someone and wondered, really wondered, whether they were with you or with what you could give them, stay right here. Because this story is going to answer that question in a way you won't forget. And if you're new to ancient African folktales, subscribe now and hit that bell. We never let a lesson go to waste. Now let me take you back to where it truly began. Adom Mensah-Boateng arrived in Toronto from Accra on a January morning, when the temperature was -23, and the snow on the tarmac looked nothing like anything he had ever seen. He was 20 years old, carrying one suitcase, holding an acceptance letter from the University of Toronto in one hand and $350 Canadian in the other. His mother had sewn the money into the lining of his coat 6 months before he left. "Don't spend it on foolish things," she had told him, standing at the Kotoka departure gate, her eyes dry because she had already done her crying in private. "Spend it only on things that build." He had listened to her. He slept on a co-worker's floor for 8 months while he worked night shifts at a grocery distribution warehouse and studied software engineering during the day. He ate instant noodles and learned that cold in Canada was not a single thing but many things: the cold of the weather, the cold of being far from everyone who knew your name, the cold of a city that moved too fast to notice you. But he did not stop. By 25, he had his degree. By 28, he had started his company, Okeem Technologies. Okeem, the Ghanaian word for a chief spokesperson, the one who translates wisdom into language people can hear. By 32, it was worth $40 million. By 35, it was worth $200 million. Bay Street noticed. Forbes Canada listed him. The Globe and Mail called him one of the most important tech entrepreneurs of his generation. And at 38, standing in a life that looked exactly like what his mother had prayed for, Adom Mensah-Boateng discovered that he was lonely in a way that success could not touch. He met Cynthia at a charity gala in the Fairmont Royal York Hotel on a Thursday evening in October. She came in wearing a gold dress that stopped the room and a confidence that suggested she already knew it would. She found him at the bar. "You're Adom Mensah-Boateng," she said, not as a question. "I am," he said. "I've read about you." She tilted her glass. "The boy from Accra who built a tech empire in Toronto, very impressive." She was beautiful. No question about that. She was 30 years old, a former brand ambassador who had pivoted into event planning and moved in circles that overlapped with wealth the way ivy grows on old buildings. She laughed easily. She knew which rooms to enter and how. She looked at Adom with eyes that made him feel chosen. Within 2 months, they were together. Within 6 months, she was spending 4 nights a week at his Rosedale home. Within 10 months, he was looking at engagement rings. "She's the one, Mama," he told his mother on a video call one Sunday afternoon. She was sitting in her kitchen in Accra, peeling plantain, her reading glasses halfway down her nose. She didn't smile right away. "Tell me what she does," his mother said. "Not what she looks like. What does she do?" "What do you mean?" "When you are tired, Adom, when you are low, what does she do?" He thought about it. Cynthia was wonderful at social events. She was funny at dinner parties. She was present in photographs. She reposted his company milestones on Instagram with captions that were warmer than anything she had said to him privately. She's supportive, he said. His mother was quiet for a moment. A tree is not a fruit, she said. Watch what she waters, my son, not what she claims to grow. He had laughed. Mama, you worry. A mother's worry is just love that has nowhere to rest, she said. And she went back to peeling her plantain. He should have listened. The signs were there. He chose not to read them. Cynthia asking in the middle of a dinner at Canoe, so how does the trust work? Like if something happened to you, then laughing it off as just being practical. Cynthia booking a $12,000 spa weekend in Whistler without mentioning it and shrugging when he raised an eyebrow. Adom, you're not going to notice $12,000. Cynthia becoming suddenly cold and distant for days whenever he mentioned keeping things responsible in the lead-up to their planned engagement. Cynthia, who was always first to hug him in public, but somehow never once asked how he was really doing. He didn't want to see it. And then came the Tuesday night that made it impossible to look away. Adom had come home early from a trip to Vancouver, a product launch that wrapped a day ahead of schedule. He hadn't told Cynthia. He wanted to surprise her. The house in Rosedale was quiet when he let himself in through the side door. It was past 10. He could hear Cynthia's voice from the sitting room, sharp and laughing, FaceTiming someone. He stopped in the hallway. Gabrielle, I'm telling you, Cynthia was saying, 200 million. Do you understand what that number looks like? Because I do now. A voice crackled from the phone. So you're actually going to marry him. Already have the ring picked out. He just doesn't know it yet. But do you even like him? Cynthia laughed, and it was a different laugh from the one she used in company. Lighter, colder. I like what he's built. Adom is actually very sweet, which makes it easier. He trusts people. He doesn't check twice. What about after the wedding? After the wedding, I am a Mensah-Boateng. Half of everything in a community property arrangement if things go sideways. And even if they don't, I will never have to think about money again. I will never have to pitch another client, smile at another brand meeting, explain myself to another room. I will be done. Cynthia, that's... Smart, she said. That's what that is. There was a pause. What if he finds out you don't love him? Cynthia's voice went flat. He won't. Men like Adom need to believe what they feel is real, so I make him feel it. I'm very good at this. Adom stood in the dark hallway of his own home and felt 15 years of building. The warehouse nights, the instant noodles, the co-worker's floor, his mother's money sewn into his coat. He felt all of it suddenly hollow, as though someone had opened a door at the bottom and let the meaning drain out. He went upstairs and didn't sleep. By morning, he had a plan. He called his best friend Fifi Achiampong at 6:30 a.m. They had known each other since secondary school in Accra. Fifi was now a cardiologist at Toronto General. Of every person in Adom's life, Fifi was the one he would trust with his life, and now with his most careful secret. I need to stage something, Adom said. Stage what? A collapse. My company. I want Cynthia to believe I've lost everything. Silence on the line. Brother. I heard her, Fifi. She said it herself. She doesn't love me. I'm a financial arrangement. I need to see what she does when she thinks the arrangement is finished. Another silence. Then how real does this need to look? Real enough that she makes choices. Fifi exhaled slowly. And your household staff? They'll see you every day. They can't know. No one can, Adom agreed. Not a single person. What about the housekeeper, the one from Nigeria? She's there every day. Adom paused. He had to think. He had a dim impression of a quiet woman who arrived early, never left late, and had once, without being asked, reorganized his pantry in a way that made it twice as easy to find things. Ngozi, he said. She'll believe it along with everyone else. Fifi was quiet for a moment longer than the question required, but he said nothing. Some things he knew had to be discovered on their own. The fiction they constructed was meticulous. Fifi connected Adom with a financial consultant and a corporate lawyer, both sworn to a strict NDA, who fabricated documents, drafted a fake insolvency scenario, and arranged a staged meeting with a hired forensic accountant who would deliver the bad news to Adom in front of Cynthia. A story was planted quietly through a freelance financial blogger. Okeem Technologies CEO Adom Mensah-Boateng faces financial crisis. Major investors withdraw after undisclosed audit concerns. Company future uncertain. It wasn't front-page news. It didn't need to be. It just needed to reach Cynthia. It reached her in 45 minutes. That evening, Adom sat across from her in the kitchen and told her the story they had prepared. The audit had flagged irregularities. The investors had panicked. The assets were temporarily frozen. He might come out the other side with very little. He watched her face. She didn't cry. She didn't take his hand across the table. She asked 12 questions in 20 minutes, and 11 of them were about money, what was frozen, what wasn't, what the prenup said, whether the house was in the company's name or his personal name. And the wedding, she said finally. That's what you want to know, Adom said quietly. She folded her hands on the table. I'm being practical. We're planning a $200,000 wedding, Adom. I need to know if that's still. I might lose everything, Cynthia. She studied him for a moment. Right, okay. Well, let's not make any decisions tonight. She went to bed without touching him. The test had begun. And that was the same week that Adom Mensah-Boateng truly met Ngozi Obi for the first time. He had employed her for 4 months without ever having a real conversation. She arrived at 7 a.m., cleaned, organized, prepared meals if requested, and left by 4. She was 29 years old, from Onitsha in Anambra State, and she had come to Toronto 3 years earlier on a student visa, enrolled in the nursing program at Toronto Metropolitan University, paying tuition partly through this job and partly through a modest scholarship, and sending money home every month for her mother's medication. Her mother had been diagnosed with kidney disease 2 years before Ngozi arrived in Canada. The money Ngozi sent kept her stable. Nothing about this was in her file. Adom hadn't thought to ask. On the third morning after the fake collapse, Adom came downstairs at 5:30, unable to sleep, and found Ngozi already in the kitchen. She was standing at the stove, waiting for a pot to come to the boil, and she looked up when she heard him. Mr. Mensah-Boateng, I'm sorry if I woke you. You didn't. He pulled out a stool at the island. What are you making? Ofakwu, she said, palm nut soup pot. She paused. My mama always says this soup's for when someone's spirit is tired. A beat, you seem tired, sir. He stared at her. It was such a simple thing to say, said with such directness. No performance, no management, no careful arrangement. Just a plain and honest observation from a woman who had noticed him the way most people in his life had stopped doing. I am tired, he said. She nodded. She didn't say more. She finished the soup and set a bowl in front of him and went to start her work, giving him the dignity of his silence. That was the first day. What followed over the next 3 weeks became the thing Adom could not unfeel. Cynthia, week 1, she moved to the guest room to give him space to think. She called twice, both times to ask questions about assets. She forwarded him a link to a scaled-down wedding venue, just in case we need to rethink the budget, and then stopped responding to his messages until he asked about her directly. When she came by the house, she moved through rooms with the energy of someone conducting an inventory. Ngozi, week 1, she noticed that Adom had stopped eating dinner. Without being asked, she began leaving covered plates in the refrigerator at the end of her shift, labeled with small sticky notes in her neat handwriting. Tuesday, Jollof, the way you left the rice a bit crispy last time, so I made it like that. Thursday, Iguzi, my mama's recipe, it's good for the head. She didn't make a production of it. She just did it. Cynthia, week 2, she arrived on a Saturday with 2 friends, unannounced, and they sat in his living room talking about options, said with the particular emphasis of people discussing what to do about a problem. When Adom walked in, Cynthia stood up and kissed his cheek. We're just catching up, she said. Her friends smiled at him with the careful brightness of people who knew something he wasn't supposed to know yet. Ngozi, week 2, she found him on a Tuesday morning sitting on the back steps, staring at the garden, not moving. She didn't ask what was wrong. She brought him a cup of tea and sat 2 steps above him, not close, not distant, and said, My Baba used to say that some mornings are not for doing, Some mornings are just for breathing. She stayed until he got up. She didn't make it a moment. She just stayed. Cynthia, week 3. She told him she needed to pause the engagement. Not end it, she said carefully. Just pause. Until things were clearer. She took the ring off. She did it calmly, without drama, and set it on the kitchen counter with the precision of someone returning borrowed goods. Then she left, and Adom noticed she took the Louis Vuitton bag he had bought her for her birthday as she walked out the door. In Ngozi, week 3, she gave him her father's prayer beads. They were wooden, dark, and smooth from years of handling. Igba aka, she called them, an Igbo counting rosary her father had carried every day of his adult life before he passed. She brought them in a small cloth drawstring bag and set them next to his morning tea without saying anything. He looked at her. My father was a quiet man, she said, but he held on to those through everything. A flood that took our shop. A sickness that took 2 years to beat. He said it wasn't the prayer that carried him through. It was the holding. Just having something solid in your hand when the weight gets very heavy. She met his eyes. I want you to have them, sir. So when the weight gets too heavy, you have something to hold. Adom looked down at the small cloth bag and felt something come loose in his chest. Some tightly held thing he had not known was there until it began to give way. He was still holding the prayer beads at midnight 2 nights later, when he heard something that made the fake collapse feel like the least important problem in his life. He couldn't sleep. He got up for water. He was passing through the corridor near the study when he heard a voice, then realized it was a call, then understood what was being said. He stopped. Cynthia was on the phone. She wasn't supposed to be in the house. She hadn't returned her key. Her voice was low, controlled. Gabrielle, listen to me. Before any of this settles legally, before he has time to restructure, I need to access that secondary account. He gave me signing authority 6 months ago for household expenses. It's still active. A pause. I'm not stealing. I'm recovering what should have been mine. Do you understand what I gave up to stay in this relationship? My brand deals, my positioning, 2 years of my life. If he's going to crater, I'm not going out empty-handed. Another pause. I need it to look like household charges, small enough not to trigger a review. I know someone at the processing level who can. Adom pressed his back against the wall. This was no longer a test about love. He stood in the dark corridor of his house and understood that the woman he had been planning to marry was not simply a person who did not love him. She was a person who intended to steal from him, systematically, with help. He heard lighter footsteps behind him and turned. Ngozi was standing at the end of the corridor with a cup of chamomile tea on a small tray. She had seen his light on. She stopped when she saw his face. Sir, she said quietly, what is wrong? He looked at her for a long moment in the half-dark of the hallway. This woman who arrived before 7 every morning, who left soup in his refrigerator with handwritten notes, who gave him her dead father's prayer beads so he would have something solid to hold. Ngozi, he said, I need to tell you something. She set the tray down on the hall table. She pulled 2 chairs from against the wall and placed them facing each other. She sat down and looked at him steadily, her hands folded in her lap, and waited. I'm not really losing the company, he said. She did not gasp. She did not look confused. She studied him. Tell me, she said simply. And he did. All of it. The overheard conversation in October, the plan he and Fifi had arranged, the fake collapse, the test he had built to see what Cynthia would do, and then what he had just heard through the study door. When he finished, the house was so quiet he could hear the traffic on Yonge Street faint in the distance. Why are you telling me? Ngozi asked. Her voice was careful, not suspicious, not wounded, genuinely asking. Because you are the only person in this house who has been real, he said. She was quiet. I am your housekeeper, she said. I mop your floors, Mr. Mensah-Boateng. I am no one important here. That's not true, he said. You're the only one who noticed I wasn't eating. The only one who sat with me on those steps and didn't try to fix anything. You gave me your father's prayer beads, the most precious thing you own, just to make sure I had something to hold. His voice broke slightly at the edge. Do you know what Cynthia gave me when I told her I might lose everything? She gave me a link to a cheaper wedding venue. and then she took her handbag when she left. He paused. I'm telling you because you are the most honest thing in my life right now. Ngozi looked at her hands for a moment. Then she looked up. I didn't do those things because of what you have, she said softly. I did them because you were hurting. Where I come from, in my family, when someone is carrying something heavy, you don't wait to be asked to help carry it. You just move closer. I know, he said. That's exactly why I'm telling you. They sat in the corridor for a long time without saying anything else. It was a comfortable silence, the kind that only exists between people who have stopped pretending. What will you do about her? Ngozi asked finally. Adom had been thinking about that since the moment he pressed himself against the wall in the dark, and now, for the first time in weeks, he felt something other than grief. He felt clear. I'm going to give her exactly what she came for, he said, a night she will never forget. The event Adom arranged 3 weeks later was billed as a private dinner to celebrate the resolution of the financial situation, a small gathering of 30 key partners, investors, and colleagues. He booked the private dining room at Alo on Spadina. He sent crystal clear, embossed invitations. He sent one to Cynthia. She came. Of course she came. She arrived in a red dress with her hair done and her confidence reassembled because the word resolution meant what she needed it to mean, that the money was still there, that the arrangement was salvageable. She sat at his right hand and put her hand over his and smiled at the room the way she always did, like a woman who had always belonged exactly where she was. Adom waited until the dessert course. He stood. I want to thank everyone for coming, he said, and before we end the evening, I'd like to tell you all a story. The room settled. About 5 months ago, he said, I overheard something that changed my life. A woman I was planning to marry told a friend that she didn't love me, that I was a financial arrangement, that she intended to do the minimum required to secure her position and spend the rest of her time elsewhere. He looked out at the table. So I staged a financial collapse. I let her believe the company was failing. I wanted to know who she was when she thought there was nothing left to gain. Cynthia's hand went very still over his. He didn't look at her yet. In the weeks that followed, she asked about assets before she asked about me. She removed her ring and took her belongings. And 3 weeks ago, I overheard her planning to use the signing authority I had given her. Access meant for household expenses, to quietly move money out of my accounts before any legal restructuring could happen. The room was silent. Now he looked at her. Cynthia's face had gone the color of old paper. She was very still, the way a person goes still when they understand they have been completely seen. The account she accessed, Adom said, was monitored from the moment this situation began. Every transaction has been flagged and documented. That documentation went to my legal team yesterday morning and to the Toronto Police Financial Crimes Unit yesterday afternoon. 2 men near the entrance of the room, who had not eaten, stood up quietly. Cynthia stood too, Adom. My company is fine, he said. It has always been fine, and now so am I. He looked across the room to where Ngozi was standing near the entrance, because he had asked her to come tonight. Not as a member of his staff, but as his guest. She wore a simple deep green dress, her hair wrapped, no jewelry except small gold studs. She looked like herself, which was the most elegant thing in the room. This woman worked in my home every day through all of this without knowing any of it was staged, Adom said. She brought me soup when I stopped eating. She sat with me on the back steps when sitting was the only thing that helped. She gave me her father's most precious possession, so I would have something solid to hold when the weight got too heavy. His voice was steady. She never asked what I was worth. She never looked at me and saw a number. She saw a man who was hurting, and she moved closer. That is who she is. Ngozi pressed her lips together. Her eyes were bright. I'm not asking anything of her tonight, Adom said. She deserves to choose freely and slowly, without pressure from any room. He looked at her directly. But I wanted you to know in front of everyone here that you changed something in me. You reminded me what it feels like to be truly seen. He reached into his jacket pocket. Not a ring, he meant what he said. He held up the small cloth drawstring bag in his open palm. I'd like to return these, he said. In person, when you're ready. The room was still for one long moment. Then someone began to clap, then another. Then 30 people in a private dining room in the middle of Toronto were on their feet. Cynthia was escorted out quietly by the two men who had been waiting. She didn't argue. She left the way someone leaves when they understand there is nothing left to say. Ngozi and Adom did not rush anything after that. He asked if she would like to have coffee with him the following Saturday. She said yes. They talked for 4 hours at a small Ghanaian cafe on Eglinton that he had loved for years. And she had walked past 100 times without going in. They talked about Accra and Onitsha, and the specific loneliness of building a life in a city that was not the one you had dreamed in. They talked about his mother and her mother, and what it means to carry the people you love across an ocean. Ngozi finished her nursing degree the following spring. Not because of anything Adom provided. Her scholarship had covered the final year, and she had been saving longer than anyone knew. She graduated from TMU on a bright May morning with her mother in the crowd, who had come from Onitsha on a visitor's visa, whose kidney disease had stabilized on the medication Ngozi had been sending home month after month without ever being asked to. And in that crowd was Adom. He stood in the May sunshine and watched her cross the stage, and he held her father's prayer beads in his jacket pocket because he had been holding them every day since the night she placed them in his hand. They married the following December in a small ceremony in Accra. Just family. Just close friends, just the people who had been real. His mother wore the kente cloth she had been saving for 30 years. She held both of Ngozi's hands before the ceremony and looked at her for a long moment without speaking. Finally, she said, "My son used to laugh when I told him to watch what a person does, not what they say. He doesn't laugh at that anymore." Ngozi smiled. "He told me about that." "Good," his mother said. She squeezed her hands. "And you showed him, not with words, with soup. With sitting beside him on the steps, with your father's beads," she held her gaze. "That is a language I have always understood." As for Cynthia, the financial crimes investigation took 8 months. She was formally charged. The case did not go to trial because the evidence was complete, and her lawyer advised a plea. Adom was not in the courtroom. He had said everything he needed to say already in a private dining room on Spadina, on a night that told the truth. Some people move through the world taking what they can carry and calling it love. Some lessons take a lifetime to arrive, and some never do. But this is not a story about what was taken. This is a story about what stayed. About a woman from Onitsha who cleaned floors and made palm nut soup and gave a hurting man her most sacred thing, not because he was wealthy, not because she expected anything in return, but because that was simply who she was. Because, where she'd seem, when someone's spirit is tired, you move closer, you don't calculate, you don't wait to be asked. You just show up with something warm in your hands and something honest in your eyes. And sometimes, if you are very fortunate, that is exactly what calls someone home. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from today. And if you believe that real love shows up quietly, in soup left in the refrigerator with a handwritten note, in someone sitting beside you when you cannot explain why you cannot stand, subscribe to Ancient African Folktales. We are here every week, and we never let a good lesson go to waste.